Coming up on Phillies Nation, presented by BQ Basement Systems, Pat and Corey break down several trade candidates on the Phillies and what could come of them before July 31st. They also discuss Cole Hamels' solid season and how he's flying under the radar. Tommy Green joins us on the mound, plus I've got the Batters Inbox questions of the week. Stay put, Phillies Nation starts now.
What is going on, everyone? It is Phillies Nation presented by BQ Basement Systems. We are here at Fieldhouse Sports and Beer Hall. Corey Simon and Pat Gallen getting you ready for the trade deadline. And it's coming fast, and the rumors are coming in quickly as well. And one of them is from the Boston Globe. Nick Cafardo says that Chase Utley is drawing interest from the Blue Jays and the Giants. Now, let's look at those two teams and how he might fit there, because Utley has said previously that he doesn't plan on going anywhere. He doesn't want to leave Philadelphia. That could change as we get closer to the deadline, but Toronto and San Francisco, two teams that absolutely need help at the second base position. The numbers there for those two teams, terrible. Chase Utley would help them. What could they bring back in return?
Well, that's the big question, because the Giants and Blue Jays, unfortunately, have two of the weakest farm systems in all of baseball. I was shocked when I looked at the Blue Jays' second base production this year and the Giants' second base production. San Fran, second baseman for the Giants, have hit 179 this season with an on-base percentage just over 200. So for them to acquire a player like Chase Utley, you'd be replacing the weakest hitter in your lineup with arguably the strongest hitter in your lineup. Just imagining what that San Fran offense would look like with Hunter Pence and Buster Posey, Pablo Sandoval now hitting, Chase Utley slotted into the middle of that. That would make the Giants arguably the favorite in the NL West over the Dodgers, so you see why there's so much interest. I don't think the Phillies are shopping Chase Utley. I think they're just listening on him the way they are with Cole Hamels. But if they do decide to make one of these trades, I just don't think the Giants and Blue Jays measure up because they don't have the prospects.
Interesting, because both have playoff and World Series aspirations, and we know that Chase Utley makes a home in San Francisco in the offseason. And the contract, that's not really an issue either, because he makes $15 million next season, plus he's got those $15 million options through 2018. But let's say they are able to match up with the Giants. Would he be crazy not to leave, because he has said that he's not really willing to go anywhere, he wants to stay?
I think the Giants are one team that Chase Utley would consider going to. You mentioned the San Francisco home, but it's also the fact that it's a contending team where they fill the seats every single night. When you're a guy like Chase Utley and a guy like Cole Hamels, you don't want to go from Philadelphia to a Tampa Bay-like situation where there's nobody in the seats. Exactly. But if you're going to a situation where there's energy in the ballpark and you're fighting for a divisional crown and a playoff spot, it'd be silly not to take that opportunity. Now, looking at these prospects, the Giants, same story as the Blue Jays. They have some high upside arms in the system, a guy like Kyle Crick in San Francisco. A lot of strikeouts, also a lot of walks. You look at the Blue Jays system, their top two guys, you have Marcus Stroman, who's in the starting rotation right now, and I doubt Toronto wants to give him up because they have a weak rotation as it is. And then there's Aaron Sanchez, the starting pitching prospect as well. If I'm the Phillies, I can't trade Utley if I'm not getting Stroman. I need somewhat of a sure thing if I'm trading a player as valuable still as Chase Utley.
Yeah, there aren't many slam dunks out there. And another trade that happened last week between the Angels and Padres was Houston Street, the closer, moving to L.A. And that's big because of Jonathan Papelbon. That was one of the teams you could see him going to. And with Houston Street, the numbers are crazy this year. A 1.06 ERA, a whip of .76, and his contract looks a lot prettier than Jonathan Papelbon's. The contract of $7 million in 2014, they'll have to pay the rest of that, and then just a $7 million club option next year. So what does this do in terms of trading Jonathan Papelbon? It's got to hurt.
Well, first off, you mentioned Street's staggering numbers. They're actually almost identical to Papelbon in terms of ERA and whip and opponent's batting average. The big difference, strikeout rate and contract. So you see why the Angels wanted Houston Street more so than Jonathan Papelbon. But first off, I look at the package that the Padres got in return. They got two of the Angels' top four prospects. Their top prospect, second baseman Taylor Lindsay. A right-handed pitcher, R.J. Alvarez, and they got Jose Rondon, who kind of reminds me of a Domingo Santana, a hitter who's really coming into his own, was not regarded as a top prospect coming into the year, but has some potential there. So to me, that sets the baseline for a Jonathan Papelbon conversation. The difference is the contract. The Phillies are still willing to pick up a lot of that deal,
and they'll have to
if they can move him. But right now, the options are limited. The options are Baltimore, Detroit, maybe San Francisco, three teams that have struggled at closer. The Giants do have a solid bullpen, but they removed Sergio Romo from that role. The Tigers, obviously, with Joe Nathan blowing saves left and right. And the Orioles just had Zach Britton blow a key save against the Oakland Athletics this past weekend on that Josh Donaldson 3-run homer. So there are still teams out there for Papelbon, and the main thing with the trade deadline coming up is that every single blown save is going to be enhanced and blown out of proportion. And maybe a team wants Papelbon more if their guy blows a save in the next few days.
All right, a National League team is looking for help not only in the outfield but with their relief corps. And Antonio Bastardo's name has come up, according to your friend Jim Salisbury from CSNPhilly.com, who says the Reds did inquire or have talked to the Phillies about Antonio Bastardo. He's been very, very inconsistent this year. 24 walks in 42 innings, although he's been better as of late. But so inconsistent, so frustrating. Why would the Reds want a guy like Antonio Bastardo?
Well, there's two pieces of that trade. We'll talk about Marlon Byrd, who's in that deal, that proposed deal as well in a second. But with Bastardo, I think that if you're an outside team and you don't see Bastardo on a game-by-game basis, you don't realize how much he struggles with control. I mean, you can look at the numbers and you can have an advanced scout come and watch him, but Antonio Bastardo, we know as Phillies observers for many years now that he comes in and he always struggles to throw strikes. To an outside team, though, they see the strikeout rate, they see the mid-90s fastball, they see the numbers against left-handed batters, and a team like the Reds, who cannot keep Sean Marshall healthy, they're a lefty specialist, they're looking to boost that bullpen, and Bastardo would be more of a secondary part of a bigger trade.
Okay, so with his trade value, I mean, what is it exactly before you get to the Marlon Byrd side of things? With Antonio Bastardo, I know that we see him a little bit differently than the rest of the league, but do you think that there is some sort of trade value beyond a team maybe like Cincinnati?
I think that for Antonio Bastardo, if you trade him by himself, you can get a double-A pitcher, maybe, a guy who has middling upside. But if you include him in a package with Marlon Byrd, that's going to enhance the return, and that's going to make a team more willing to part with a top prospect if they know that not only are they getting a power bat in Marlon Byrd for the next couple of years, but also Antonio Bastardo, who's still cost-controlled and is going to make a lot less than the key left-handed free agent relievers next year.
All right, do you think this is a good move? Because we had heard Marlon Byrd, his name was popping up with the Seattle Mariners last week at some point, and now the Cincinnati Reds they're trying to make a run in that Central, which is very clogged. So the fit there with Marlon Byrd in Cincinnati, I thought he was a bit of a fit in the Mariners organization if they could figure things out with the prospects. But as Jim Salisbury said, Bastardo and Byrd possibly to the Reds. Do you like that? Do you not like it? What do you think?
Well, again, I mean, we're talking about this again. The Reds do not have a strong farm system. It's the same deal with the Giants and the Blue Jays. It's a shame the Phillies can't get teams like the Dodgers and the Red Sox involved in these trade discussions where the real legitimate top prospects are. You know, I don't know. I think Marlon Byrd, it's a curious fit in Cincinnati at first glance.
Yeah, it is.
While the Reds have gotten the worst production in all of baseball out of right field, they still have Jay Bruce. True. However, Joey Votto's on the DL. I guess they could shift Bruce to first base, put Byrd in right field. It definitely makes that team better. I think Marlon Byrd's going to go before the deadline. It's kind of a shame because he's the most consistent power bat the Phillies have had since Ryan Howard's heyday. But you know, you have to give value to get value.
Right. We'll keep your eye on things. We've been talking about Marlon Byrd here almost every week as far as trades are concerned. So it does look likely that he could be on his way out of Philadelphia. When we come back here on Phillies Nation, we'll get into By the Numbers and a lot more. Don't go anywhere. It's Corey and Pat here on PNTV.
It's like one of those things where somebody tells you you can't do something and your entire goal is to prove them wrong.
One of the most important qualities of a pitcher is his control. In his senior year at Temple University, Matt Hockenberry's control was seized by the administration, who decided to cut 7 varsity sports, including baseball.
My senior year was huge because, one, I knew it was the last year that I had the chance to, you know, prove that I could get onto a Major League Baseball field. And then on top of that, I had the chip on my shoulder because the administration told us that we couldn't do it.
After being told no for months during his final season with Temple, Hockenberry remained hopeful for one thing, a yes during the MLB draft, which came from the team right down Broad Street.
Pick 262 came up and it was the Phillies. So I refreshed my feed on my phone and there was still nothing up yet. So I'm like, almost having a heart attack, and then my name pops up. It says Matt Hockenberry, right-handed pitcher, Temple University, and I lost my mind.
Hockenberry may be the last player to be drafted from Temple. That means he represents 87 years of Temple baseball history in Philadelphia, and he's evidence the Owls program is still alive.
I still, to this day, rock these wristbands. It's a little faded. It says the Band of Brothers, which is my baseball team and my coaches and all of our parents and fans. And that says for the love of the game, because at the end of the day, you still got to remember that you're playing baseball because you love it.
With the Band of Brothers in mind, Hockenberry's ultimate goal is to make it back to the city of brotherly love.
The fact that everybody calls me the local kid because I went to Temple, I was in Philly, and now I'm just right across the bridge over here in New Jersey, you know, playing for the Phillies. I think because the Phillies saw something in me that they want on their fields in the minor leagues really gives me the motivation to keep working my hardest. My dream is to pitch for the Philadelphia Phillies at Citizens Bank Park in front of thousands and thousands of people who probably went to Temple.
Thank you, Matt, and good luck to Matt Hockenberry as he pitches at Lakewood and eventually attempts to make the Phillies. From a future Philly, hopefully, to one in the present, that's Cole Hamels, and he has had an outstanding season, but it's kind of flown under the radar because of how things have gone this year. 7 innings on Saturday, no runs, no walks, 9 strikeouts, just vintage Cole Hamels, a 2.83 ERA so far this year, and he hasn't allowed more than 3 runs in a game since May. They might trade him, they might not trade him, but he's been very good so far this year.
The Phillies are simply wasting one of the best years of Cole Hamels' career, if not the best. A 2.83 ERA, the second best of his career, 9.1 strikeouts per 9, the highest rate for Cole Hamels since his rookie season. Okay, this has been a dominant season for Cole, who has had this string of like 14 or 15 consecutive starts where he's been lights out. And it's just a shame that the Phillies are wasting it. It's a shame they're not scoring runs for him on a consistent basis. And again, it's a shame that you have to have this conversation, do you trade Cole Hamels?
Right.
Because 30 years old, should be a building block for the future, but there's just not going to be enough around him, it seems, the next couple of years.
And his name keeps popping up in trade rumors as well with, of course, the Yankees, the Red Sox, all different teams. But let's say he does not get dealt at the trade deadline this year. What are the odds that they do trade him after the season?
I think if Cole Hamels doesn't get traded this trade deadline, I don't think he's moving, because I think the Phillies, by the offseason, are going to talk themselves into keeping him around as the building block of the team, the anchor of the rotation, the segue to the next starting staff for the Phillies. And they're going to need to be blown away either way.
Agree.
Maybe if the Dodgers lose in the first round of the playoffs, come the winter, they're willing to trade Jock Peterson and Julio Urias for Cole Hamels. But barring that, barring them having a Godfather offer sent their way, Cole Hamels is sticking around.
All right, let's go from Cole Hamels to a segment we call By the Numbers, some fun numbers thrown out at you. And Corey wants to start with J-Roll.
Jimmy Rollins, 1 steal away. He had 19 steals through Sunday. He's 1 steal away from reaching 20 stolen bases for the 13th time in his career. There are only 13 players in the history of baseball who have had more seasons of 20-plus steals, and it's a who's who of Hall of Famers. We're looking at Ricky Henderson, Ty Cobb, Ozzie Smith, Joe Morgan, then guys like Kenny Lofton and Brett Butler. So Jimmy Rollins, one of the elite base stealers in the history of baseball and one of the highest success rates ever.
All right, in recent history, and I started just looking around at numbers on Baseball Reference, and I just noticed hitting is terrible right now. .316 is the on-base percentage in Major League Baseball. If you go back just 5 years, it was .333. If you go back 10 years, it was .335. I don't know what the deal is, but I know, just looking at it, people cannot hit anymore. So the numbers are staggering.
Well, pitching's better, steroids are gone, and all those old man skills,
right there.
all those old man skills that were valued in the early 2000s just aren't anymore. But it's funny you mentioned the OBP because Ben Revere gets killed for his on-base percentage.
Right.
Criticized in the Philly market for that all the time, but I went back and I looked at Ben Revere as a Philly. 299 batting average, 326 on-base percentage. You know what the National League average for leadoff batters on-base percentage is over that span?
I don't.
314. So Ben Revere's on-base percentage actually over that span is 12 points better than the average National League leadoff man, which, it doesn't seem like that.
No,
but hey,
it doesn't.
So as an area where he's been above average.
I'm actually pretty impressed by
So
that
am I,
stat.
man.
Kyle Kendrick, not so impressive recently. This tweet from Matt Gelb, and he said, Kyle Kendrick has a 5.38 ERA in the last calendar year. That's 30 starts. That is the highest ERA for any Major League pitcher in that span. So right now, things not looking so good for Kyle Kendrick.
Yeah, KK is not doing himself any favors in the free agent market. If he gets to 200 innings with an ERA of like 420, 430, he'd be in line for a $7, $8 million contract. But if he gets to 180 innings with a 5 ERA, we're looking at a 1-year deal for Kendrick.
All right, let's go around baseball a little bit and some home run hitters. One being Jose Abreu, 29 home runs through Sunday. The only rookie to hit 40-plus home runs in a season was Mark McGwire in 1989. He hit 49 home runs. Can Abreu get there?
I think so. I mean, you look at that power, it's been consistent all year. The doubles have been there, the homers have been there, and he's been bringing his batting average up, too. He looks like a complete hitter.
Can he stay healthy, though? That's the question.
Sure looks like
We'll see. How about Victor Martinez? What an incredible year for him. 21 homers, 23 strikeouts. The last player to end up with more home runs than strikeouts in a season, of course, Barry Bonds, hit 45 home runs and had 41 strikeouts in 2004. George Brett also, in 1980, had 24 home runs and just 22 strikeouts. That's from ESPN stats. It was just a different game, wasn't it?
Yeah, and Victor Martinez, you spoke over the last calendar year. Over the last calendar year, VMART has hit like 337.
Yeah.
So he's a guy who's having a resurgent season after last year breaking out in the second half. And he struggled a little bit since coming back from the injury, but he's been one of the top forces in that Tigers lineup.
Absolutely. Let's go to our fantasy baseball segment. It's brought to you by DraftStreet.com. The future of fantasy sports with free one-day leagues where you can win cash. We didn't pick anyone last week because of the All-Star break. Why don't you start us off this week? Who do you have?
I'm taking Wade Miley, the Arizona Diamondbacks starting pitcher. He's kind of flown under the radar this year, but over his last 2 starts has a 1.93 ERA, a 107 whip, and a lot of strikeouts. Last month, a 2.76 ERA, a low whip, and 8.8 strikeouts per 9 innings. And it was just 2 years ago that Wade Miley won 16 games with a 3.33 ERA. A good second-half starting pitcher owned in just 27% of Yahoo leagues.
I'm going to go with our old friend, the Flying Hawaiian, Shane Victorino, off the DL with the Boston Red Sox. He had been on there since May 24th. And I think in deeper leagues, 12 or 14-team leagues, you can stash him on your bench because he's only going to play about 5 days a week because he's coming off that injury. They want to try and keep him healthy, but keep an eye on Shane Victorino. Give you some steals and a little bit of power if he gets the playing time. When we come back, we'll get into our Batters Inbox segment with Ryan Williams right here on Phillies Nation.
Welcome back to Phillies Nation. I'm Ryan Williams here with Pat and Corey, and it's time for our Batters Inbox questions, where the guys debate your question and I'll pick the winner. Guys ready?
Let's do it.
Let's start, do it.
All right, let's go. Our first question. In the last 5 years, what was the best move the Phillies didn't make? Corey?
Not signing B.J. Upton, and it wasn't even a move the Phillies didn't make. They actually reportedly offered Upton 5 years and $55 million, which was $20 million less than what the Braves came in with. But can you imagine how big a disaster this would be if you also had that $15 million contract on your books? B.J. Upton, since signing with the Braves, has hit 199 with 270 strikeouts in 217 games. The Braves right now are doing all they can to just unload that contract. He's a player who looks like he doesn't even belong in an everyday lineup anymore, and it's a good thing the Phillies did not sign B.J. Upton.
I might concede that point to you, Corey, because it's that good. But another good one, Jason Worth, and not re-signing him. He signed a $126 million contract with the Nationals, and he's absolutely not worth that kind of money, and I think we knew that here, and that's why the Phillies did not offer him such a contract. But look at these numbers. Since the start of 2012, he's ranked 65th in Fangraph WAR, just 7.8, and that's despite being the 19th highest paid player in Major League Baseball this season. The Phillies would be a better team with him. I think we all know that, but for that money, absolutely not. So if they had re-signed Worth to a $100+ million contract, they may have had to let Cole Hamels leave, and some of the other guys that they re-signed, they may not be here.
And Corey's winning on that one. You agreed with him too.
All right,
so.
I agree with it. I'll give him that then.
Our next question comes from Natalie, who has it from a Phillies fan.
Hey guys, I'm here with Jeff from Old City, and Jeff wants to know,
who is the most overrated player in baseball?
So what do you guys think, Pat?
I'm going to go with Elvis Andrus of the Texas Rangers, shortstop. They signed him to an 8-year, $120 million contract that doesn't kick in until next year. Offensively, he's so-so. He's an average offensive player, and he's all right defensively, but absolutely not worth a $120 million contract. Texas Rangers made a big mistake there. He's very much overrated. I'm a fan of his game, but, I mean, not for that kind of money.
I thought it was lunacy when the Rangers signed Elvis Andrus. Overpaid, yes. Overrated, I can't agree, because it's not like you have national media members touting Elvis Andrus. So for that reason, I'm going with Bryce Harper, who everybody lumps Bryce Harper in with Mike Trout. They're not even close to the same player. Bryce Harper, in his career so far, has hit .270 with a .351 on-base percentage. He's a useful piece, an .823 OPS, not a superstar. His 162-game average, 25 homers, 71 RBIs, and as we've seen, he hasn't been able to stay on the field for a full season yet, so I got to go Bryce Harper, by far the most overrated player in baseball.
Well, wait, if you're signing a $100 million contract, nationally people know who you are.
Yes, but if you poll the common fan, they definitely know Bryce Harper over Elvis Andrus. Right, Ryan?
Right, Corey, and that's why I'm going with you on this one.
He wins already?
He's on a roll today,
Just go
sorry.
to the last
Did my
question,
research.
then. Fine.
Our last question. Give us the most impressive single-game performance from a Philly this year. Pat?
I'm going to go back to opening day, unfortunately. It was so long ago now, but back on March 31st, Cody Ashley went 3 for 4, grand slam, double, knocked in 4, scored 4 runs. The Phillies put up 14 runs that day, and we thought, this is a new team. This is going to be a new offense this year. Wasn't meant to be, but that stood out to me because I do think Cody Ashley will be here for the long term. I don't know if he's going to be a third baseman because of Maikel Franco, but he might be on this team in an outfield, a corner outfield spot, but I have to go back to opening day. It was so long ago, and it stinks to have to do that.
I'm going with for most impressive, just because it's impressive how the Phillies weren't able to win this game when Cliff Lee against the Braves early in the season pitched a complete game, struck out 13 batters, allowed just 1 run, and lost. He's the first pitcher in the history of baseball to have multiple losses in games where he allowed just 1 run and struck out at least 13 batters. That, to me, is impressive that the Phillies have been able to lose 2 of those games to the same team in the span of 2 years.
Well, I like your answer on this one.
All right, I'll take one then.
You
That's
get a
fine.
point this
All right,
week.
thank you.
Well, that wraps up our Batters Inbox questions for this week. We want to hear what you have to say, so leave them for us on our Facebook and Twitter page. More Phillies news is coming right up.
Hi, I'm Tommy Green. Today we're going to talk about the unwritten rule of getting hit by pitches and what happens after that. 92 in particular, back when I was playing, there was one of my teammates he had a knack of getting hit. His name was Dave Hollins, and he probably got hit close to 30 times that year. And when something like that happens, depending on the situation, a pitcher has to take care of his teammates a little bit, and he's got to pitch inside and get inside with people. And I think there's a certain way you go about it. You don't throw at guys' heads, but you throw inside, and you want the guy to move to let them know that this is not going to keep happening. Or if not, you're one of your guys are going to get hit. So, I mean, there's different things that happen during the course of a game. I don't know if everybody sees that, but pitchers and hitters, they understand what's going on. Hope that kind of clarifies a little bit for this answer.
Great stuff as always from Tommy Green on the mound. And now we go to a center fielder that's been opening some eyes here for the Phillies, and that's Grady Sizemore. They pick him up after he's released by the Boston Red Sox. He plays in Lehigh Valley for what seemed like a minute. Phillies bring him up. Not so bad, but let's look at the long-term future for Grady Sizemore in Philadelphia. Does he have one?
I think he does. And the reason I think that is because the Phillies have such little outfield depth that this is kind of like a Sixers situation where you bring in guys that can score 18 points per game on a bad team. Grady Sizemore can put up some numbers on a bad team because he's going to be playing a lot. If he can stay healthy, he's shown some doubles, some gap power, some plate discipline. That was always one of his best skills in the minor leagues. And I think Grady Sizemore could be a good defensive corner outfielder and a guy you could bat first, second, or sixth in this lineup.
Now, I wouldn't play him 6 or 7 days a week, but he could be a platoon type of a guy. And if you bring him off the bench, why not? That's a good left-handed bat. All right, let's hit our Phillies Nation trivia. The hashtag is PNTrivia at Phillies Nation. It's brought to you by Scheib Vintage Sports, and you can check them out, scheibsports.com, and use the promo code Phillies Nation, get 20% off. So last week's question was, name the Philly, the All-Star, who had 7 at-bats in one All-Star game. You know who that was?
Who was it?
1950, it was Pudd'nhead Jones.
A PHJ, huh?
Yeah, I'm surprised you didn't know that. This week, only 2 active left-handed pitchers have a higher baseball reference WAR than Cliff Lee, who's at 43.6. I think you know 2 of them. I think everyone out there is going to be able to get it as well. Use the hashtag PNTrivia at Phillies Nation. You can win some cool stuff from Scheib Vintage Sports. Well, that's it for us. The thank yous, of course, go all around. The guys behind the camera, 2020, Brian Michael. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Tommy Green, and Matt Hockenberry as well. And congrats to him and good luck as well. He is Corey Simon. I am Pat Gallen. That's it for the latest Phillies Nation, presented by BQ Basement Systems. Come hang out at the Fieldhouse Sports and Beer Hall. We'll talk to you next week.